Hey Year 12s, just going to do a video as promised about how best to organise or do a question if we're trying to find our break-even point. Okay, so we're going to do question 3 here. So a manufacturer of paper kites has the following production costs. So the first thing you should be looking at and trying to figure out is what is your fixed cost per week or per time period, what are your variable costs, and what's your selling price going to be. All right, so the first step is to add up your fixed costs. Now, they're not always going to tell you what is a fixed cost and what is a variable cost. There will be times when you have to actually decide that for yourselves, okay, especially in a test sort of situation. We see here that our factory rental 400, salaries 2,000, insurance 100, so our fixed costs per week are going to be 2,500 once we add those together. Look at our variable costs, we add those together as well. We'll just sort of move that over there. So that's going to be $1.25 plus $1.50 plus 75 cents plus $12.50. Okay, so what are we looking at there? $13.25, $14.50 plus $1.50 is going to be $16. All right, so that's our variable cost per kite. And then it says here that he hopes to sell his kites for $35 each. So our first thing that we're being asked to do is to find our expression for our total revenue. Now, we went through this the other day. If we go to our graph function on our graphics calculator, graph, and then we'll go exit. That one's still here from the other day. So hopefully yours are sort of either blank, or we can just sort of delete. You can click on delete and then click F1 for yes. So we're going to have our Y1, our first line, as our revenue. So we remember that they told us that our kites are going to sell for $35 each. So we can just write Y1 equals 35x. All right, your X button is up here. Okay, it'll look like that. Actually, yours won't look like that. If you've got an older model, it'll just look like a more sort of like this X just here. All right, and that's all we need to do. Okay, X, remember, is representative of how many kites we're actually going to sell. We don't know how many we're going to sell at the moment, so we can leave that as X, or an unknown number. Okay, then we move on to our costs sort of line that we're going to do on our graph. Now, if you remember sort of back, we needed to do our fixed costs, which, you know, as the name suggests, is a fixed cost that doesn't actually change, and that was $2,500. And then we do plus, not equals, plus our variable costs. So our variable costs were $16, okay? Plus 16x, that is. Okay, because X, we don't know how many kites we're going to sell still, but we know that each one we sell is going to cost us $16. We're getting $35 per one we sell, but they're costing us $16 to make. 2,500 represents our fixed costs. Okay, that's what we need to do for our formulas. So once you've done that, we need to make sure that we've selected both of these. You can tell that because the actual equal sign is sort of filled in, or behind the equal sign is filled in. If it's not filled in like this, like that, can you see how that up there has sort of changed to being not filled in? So we need both of those filled in, and you can just do that by selecting F1, which corresponds to our select, okay? I'll just change the calculator screen. All right, so it goes back to looking normal. There we go. From here, once we've sort of figured out we've got both of our equations selected, we're going to draw those two lines. All right. Now that's not an ideal sort of window. We can't see the intersect point, which is really what we're about. So you can do this one of two ways. We can go to View Window and click. If we click on Square, sometimes that's sort of actually no, that's not right. If we go Zoom Auto, that gets us quite often. The Zoom Auto actually automatically zooms us to a point where we can see the intersect point. Sometimes it doesn't. You might have to muck around with zooming in or out. So if we go zoom and then out, and then we can center where we want our zoom to sort of be. You know, if we want to move our cursor sort of up more here so we can zoom out a bit further, and then click execute, it'll actually sort of zoom out for you that way. All right. But really all we're after is seeing that there is an intersect point with those two lines. Okay. Now we can find what that point is by just going to G-solve, so F5, and then hitting F5 again to get our intersect. Okay. All right. So that's telling us that our intersect point is when x equals 131, y equals $4,605. Okay, so what that's saying to us is that we would need to sell, and this is important, we would actually need to sell 132 kites to actually break even. Okay, if we sold 131, we wouldn't quite have enough money to break even. If we sold 132, we would have enough. We'd have a little bit more. Okay, but we always round up in that situation when we're talking about you know, units that we're buying, because you can't buy, you know, 0.57 of a kite. Okay, so that is you know, some instructions about how to do a break-even point on your calculator. I will do another video probably next week, just showing you how you can do that with a pen and paper as well. And you guys, it's up to you guys to decide which one's going to be easiest for you, you know, coming into the test and also for the folio. All right. Any questions? I'll speak to you in class. All right. Thanks, guys.